Hello, and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. On this episode, I'm going to start talking about, I want to bring up a topic that I've kind of hinted at before. On a previous episode, I talked about exhibitionism, and I not only talked about exhibitionism as far as how the play goes and what the paraphilic side is. What I really want to bring in today is what I'm starting to see espoused on social media, places like alt.com, FetLife, fetish.com, Twitter, Reddit. People are, especially women, are exposing themselves to unsuspecting people, involving them in their kink. Meaning they'll open the door to a delivery guide. Now, whether that's staged or not is obviously of question. But the reality is that these people doing this, one that I saw recently, I don't watch the videos, but I saw the title of the video. When I read these things and I read the supporting comments, what ends up disturbing me about the response from the kink community or the BDSM or the fetish community as a whole is that they're supportive. There's nothing supportive or healthy about this type of behavior. The reality is that you've involved somebody that's non-kink into your lifestyle and exposing them with what do we always talk about, without their consent. Now, when we see women doing this, we tend to applaud them. As a matter of fact, I've called out many that have done similar types of behavior before. It's appalling and it's abhorrent. There's nothing in our lifestyle, there's nothing about being an exhibitionist, unless you have a disorder, where you have to start exposing yourself to others for pleasure. When you're doing it strictly for monetary value, strictly because you are suffering from attention seeking and you want to raise the wow factor in the things that you're doing, what you are doing is violating somebody else. In these instances, they're actually committing, depending on their locales, committing crimes by exposing themselves, exposing their genitalia, exposing their bare bodies to these people. And the reality is, too, what are we teaching, for as often as women complain about men, what are we also instilling in somebody who's young that this occurs or happens to? What about their beliefs and their thoughts and their views on women? So when we talk about, or I see it's quite heavily the bashing of men, and I'm not saying that sometimes men don't deserve it. Sure, men do stupid things, but so do others. With the sexualized or the re-energized sexual revolution and sexual autonomy, we also have to understand there comes responsibility. And if you're going to operate within the lifestyle, you still have to carry yourself with a certain amount of respect or clout. When you fail to do so, you're bringing a further negative attention to the lifestyle. You're further surmising that it is nothing more than just deviant behavior that goes on, and not deviant in a healthy way. And that's problematic. Well, especially when we look at these things and people take these things to heart. The bigger question is why? Are we really doing these types of behaviors because we need to and we're driven by a compulsion, or are we driven to do these things just for the admiration and attention? Furthermore, I really ask of the community as a whole and in general, that why are you so supportive? What I tend to find is the bigger difference when I ask these questions on social media and wherever that may be versus when I ask that questions when I'm real time at a dungeon or a convention or anything else. Because in those areas, that's excluded specifically for those groups, for the people in the lifestyle. And even at that comes with parameters, because if your behavior starts to shed a negative light on the things that you are doing, you're asked to leave and your fun ends. So why are we starting now to cheer and give adulation to those that are doing this without their consent? What is it that we teach everybody apart when we hear the things, the acronyms like RAC or SSC? We talk about consent. When we talk about negotiating, we talk about consent, giving the ability and the information to somebody so they can make a choice of whether or not they want to participate in that activity. And even at that, it's limited. Now, again, I don't know if a lot of these photos and some of these videos are staged. That is probably up for debate, and I honestly don't know. But the reality is that we are looking at this in a negative light. Why is it okay for you to expose yourself to kink, especially being a female, versus if this was a male doing this to somebody? If a man did this to a young delivery girl, he'd be charged. There would be crimes. There would be inquests. There would be arrests. People in the kink community would be calling him a predator and a groomer. But yet, we cheer and throw accolades for women that are doing this, and it's the same thing. There is no difference here than when we're seeing this and people are acting in this behavior or this manner. You're exposing yourself and you're exposing kink to those who don't consent to doing it. Those who aren't even a part of the lifestyle may not even understand why. The majority of the time, the people that I look that are doing this, they are the ones that have their OnlyFans account, or they have Fansly or Linktree to all of their other places they can sell themselves like a cheap suit. And that's fine if that's how you want to make your money. But you can't do that, and you can't be a part of something and call yourself a part of something when you're not confiding by the rules that the rest of us do. Nobody goes out and acts in a manner and takes their kink public and exposes it to others without their consent. Most of the time, I don't know anybody who does. Kink has always been reserved to be something private, sought after, cherished, deserved, worked hard for, to learn. I don't go to a public beach with my slave and then, take off my belt and start beating her in front of an onlooking crowd. It's not a demonstration. So why do people think that others want to see this? I also see more and more, people at the grocery stores or in parking lots exposing themselves, having sex in their cars. First off, the majority of that isn't kink. It's not even it's maybe a fetish at best. Having sex in public, otherwise known as dogging, or exposing yourself, so having a quick flash of exhibitionism. But the reality is when you're doing these things in public, we're also exposing ourselves not only to other non-consenting adults, but we're exposing our personal interests potentially to children. And that's criminalistic behavior. And then these people find out, oh, well, look, they're in the kink community. And again, it turns on its vile head. And we then have another upward battle to fight and clap back. So the kink community really has a responsibility here to stop promoting and stop believing, at least in a social media context, the belief that doing kink publicly where others are around. And I'm not talking about if you're off camping for the weekend and you're in the deep woods or up in the mountains and you're for the most part in a secluded or private spot. That's different. Your exposure risk is far low, and the intention behind it is also not there. You didn't go to the mountains with your dominant or your submissive or whatever the case may be, or with your kink troop, and then all of a sudden know that there was going to be, 30 other campers at this specific spot. More than likely, you're not going to conduct those activities. And if you are going there to shoot a film or take some photos, again, you're more than likely doing it in a private context. But to do so in public, when in the full view and full brunt of everybody else, it's unhealthy. It's not part of the kink lifestyle. It violates every tenement that we reserve. And the worst part is that when you call these people out on their behavior, then they turn the tables back, and they always try to claim they're a victim, or, we're trying to stifle the sex workers, or all of that is negated the moment you violate somebody else's consent, where your needs to conduct and I know you can't see me, but I'm doing the air quotes when I say conduct your kink. And that's not kink. It's just abhorrent you being a disrespectful, trashy person so you can get some likes and hopefully somebody buys your, panties covered in tuna juice so you can sell them for $5. It's ridiculous, abhorrent behavior. And I'll keep saying that, and I'll call anybody else out on it. The other part of this that I think that becomes part of these tired tropes that they're just allowed to do these things is that when we're looking at these imagery as a kink community and all of these people are kind of cheering them on, what's that say about you? What's that say about you when you're supporting this type of behavior, when you look at these types of things and say, hey, this is okay. Wow, that's great. I wish I was that pizza delivery kid. What's that say about you and your knowledge and your experience and your respect in the kink community? Why would I trust a dominant who's saying that? I would never trust another dominant that if I find out they were supporting that behavior to ever be entrusted to maybe train my submissive in something. I would never do that. I wouldn't believe they would have the capabilities. When I look at other submissives commenting on, oh my gosh, I wish this is something I could do. Why? What about this particular activity is so alluring that we're now drawn towards exposing ourselves to others? You're violating, at the worst, you're violating the law, and it's a criminalistic behavior. I don't support it. I'll never support it. Your freedom to sexual revolution and sexual, exposure is limited when it comes to others that don't consent to what you're experiencing or what you show them. There is no argument there. There is nothing you can say. There is no circular logic you can imply. You can't claim to be a victim nor an advocate. All you are is a person that solely is a selfish person that solely cares about themselves and what you can do to generate a little bit of income. And the reality is that by supporting this behavior, we're not saying much about the standards we once held the kink community to. So this also equates to something else that I've been wanting to talk about too. I see a lot of misinformation being espoused on social media when we look at how we should and shouldn't conduct ourselves when we are new to the lifestyle. The reality is, if people don't agree to be a part of your kink, then you shouldn't do it. There are a lot of people who write or are quote unquote popular on social media that have obviously links to sell their goods or their fantasies or their toys. But when they start writing things about you can do this, you can do X, you can do Y, and there's zero consequences, that's absolutely not true. When we use this type of information and we're new to the kink scene, we're not putting any effort in when we're trying to understand that what are our responsibilities here. When we have somebody who's been or alleges that they've been in the lifestyle for a long period of time and they're telling you that this type of behavior is acceptable, well, then we're telling them they're getting a free pass. And that's just not the case. The unfortunate rise with things like mini videos or OnlyFans is that these people, and that's fine, they've found a way that they want to generate some income. But they're also using the guise of kink, unfortunately, to then create their quote-unquote content and sell it. Through doing so, they're becoming more and more attempts to be shocking and outrageous, let alone outlandish. Again, this lends back to what I've said before. You're violating somebody else's right to decide if they want to be a part of it. If somebody's not a part of the things you do or enjoy, regardless if you think or that they will enjoy it, then don't do it. But worse yet is supporting this behavior. And I keep seeing, like I said earlier, I keep seeing people support this. It's new wave feminism, empowerment, it's sexual freedom, sexual liberation. It's none of these things. To start espousing those things is nothing more than a lie. And you're using that as a shield for your improper behavior that's unethical. And that's literally what this is. We're talking about unethical behavior that we wouldn't do. I don't take somebody out in public in the middle of church and start having sex with them. I don't go to the supermarket and start, grab a cucumber and shove it inside of my submissive. Not only would it be unethical to do, there's probably going to be some elements of criminal activity that are looming inside of there, especially on the type of locations that you live. So if we want to come together as a kink community, that's great. If we want to explore new things and new avenues that drive that inner belief or feelings we have towards being kinky and learning about the fetish community and the lifestyle community as a whole, we also have the responsibility to understand that exposing people to ourselves when they're not wanting to is unhealthy. It's wrong. It's even immoral. When people aren't a part of what we are a part of, it doesn't give us the right to it doesn't give us a pass to expose them to it. All we are doing is exposing them to the dark side of what we do and giving it a really bad name. And then they in turn around and say, oh, well, this is going on. This is the type of behavior. For this one person that I saw in particular, at least on her video where she was espousing, hey, I gave this pizza delivery guy such a great view. And from the comments of the people who could watch it, because I don't watch videos, they were saying, oh, well, the look on his face and he must have been happy and what a great tip, and so on and so forth. What are you really saying? You're giving a pass to this behavior. You're also saying that you're going to start feeding a fantasy that this is what ends up happening. Now, what if that young man now goes out, delivers another pizza, and expects a woman to do this next time? And in turn, you've now shaped his behavior to feel and believe this way. Our actions shape the behaviors of the world that we're in. That's literally the world that I work inside of. When I do cognitive behavior therapy, that's exactly what we're doing. We're shaping people's behavior or changing it from something unhealthy to something positive. When you do these behaviors, you're doing something unhealthy and further building on delinquentary behaviors that shape our minds and not put us into the mindset of the people we should be. I'm not saying that all kink has to be restrictive. It's not. However, when you're doing kink in this reality and in this world, we still have to do it in a space that allows us the autonomy and the freedom to do it with people who want to witness it. If we go to a public forum, if we go to a play party, if we go to a convention or a scene, or if we go to a demonstration, yeah, that's the proper venue then to start conducting your kink. Anything else otherwise outside of that, where you're involving people who aren't a part of it, it's wrong. It's not the community that I know. And I know the vast majority of people don't necessarily agree with it. But in my hopes is when you're on social media and you see these things, you speak up. Because the only way we can sit there and explain to people it's not about their sexual freedom is by telling them, hey, this behavior is not okay. We're not supposed to be doing that. That's not how this works. And like I said, look, if you want to use your OnlyFans or you want to use many videos to support your behavior to make yourself income, great. Then drop the kink aspect out of it. Because for the rest of us who practice it ethically, who practice it with respect and dedication and effort, and we put our time in, you're giving the rest of us a bad name. You're giving the community a bad name. And you're shedding a dark light that we fought for so long to come out of. And that's just not okay. At least this will give you something more to think about. And if not, do yourself a favor and isolate yourself from the rest of us and remove your tags and your associations with the BDSM or the lifestyle community. Because none of what you're doing, none of that types of behavior represent the vast majority of people that are involved. All you are doing in turn is, like I just mentioned, you're giving the rest of us a bad name. We don't deserve that. And again, if anything, you're violating my consent to do so. At least, hopefully, this will give you all something more to think about. And like I said, don't be afraid to speak up. The only way we can enact positive change and keep moving forward inside of the sexual revolution is by talking about it and having a worthwhile discussion. But if we hold back or bite our tongue because we're worried about reprisal, well, in essence, we're at least somewhat silently condoning the behavior, and that's not okay. Until next time, be safe and stay kinky.